my opinion is that I think, and this is more Calvary Chapel specifically, I think we have just bought into a particular narrative in regard to eschatology, and we never question it. We never look more deeply into it. We just repeat the same things over and over and over again. I think we need to pause and say, wait a second, does the text really say what I'm saying it says?
Okay.
So Ezekiel 38 and 39 is a great example where I think we should do that. I think we need to revisit that because many in the Calvary Chapel world see this, well, of course, they see it as a Russian invasion of Israel. And so when people are talking about prophecy, they're always obsessing over Russia. What is happening with Russia? And if Russia's doing anything, then, oh, this means that that's going to happen. I think if you take a deeper look at the passages there, I don't know that it really means what we think it means. And good premillennial scholars have disagreed over what is being described in Ezekiel 38 and 39. I think the best way to understand it is it's the Old Testament version of what we call the Battle of Armageddon. So the New Testament doesn't necessarily call it the Battle of Armageddon, but we call it the Battle of Armageddon because, of course, the armies gather at the place called Armageddon. But when you look at Ezekiel and you look at the description of Armageddon, I think you have the Old Testament description and you have the New Testament description. And then if you think about Ezekiel 39, of course, the next chapter is the beginning of the millennium, and it's the restoration of the temple and all of that stuff. So it seems to me to take Ezekiel 38 and 39 and pull it out and put it in a place where it's talking about an event, kind of a global event before the great global event. That means you have two massive global events. It's almost like you have two comings of Jesus without Jesus coming in the first part of it.
Okay. So you're more,
if that makes any sense.
You're more like, okay, you're more up to date on this than I am.
Yeah.
You've been, I guess, revisiting the scholarship, thinking through, okay, so this type of explanation or the research, like, should this be presented on a Sunday morning? See, we just talked with you about your Sunday night stuff.
Yeah.
This type of explanation, should it be in a Sunday morning, or should we have a special prophecy update, a special evening meeting going more in depth on these types of things?
Well, I think you could conceivably decide to do a series. We believe in preaching series on different topics, right?
Sure.
I think you could easily do a prophecy series.
Yeah.
And you could cover these sort of things. We recently, the last thing we did before I stepped away from the senior pastor role is we did the story of God. So we started with Genesis. We went all the way through. Well, I did the last teaching in that, and I did the book of Revelation.
Okay.
And so on Sunday morning, I'm talking about Revelation. I'm talking about the different views on Revelation. I'm talking about preterism. I'm talking about all-millennialism. I'm talking about premillennialism. You know, I'm basically teaching the church eschatology.
Yeah.
So I think you can do that.
Yeah.
I think balance is the key.
Yes.
You know, and again, the scriptures, they have those places where the apostles, whoever it is, maybe it's Jesus, maybe it's Paul, maybe it's Peter, maybe it's John, they're drilling down deep into this. We should drill down into it when we get there. But we shouldn't just always go there because the news said, this is happening, and therefore we conclude that this means this. And so today I've got to preach on a series on the rapture.
Yeah. Yeah, there's got to be wisdom, you know, like we want to have, like, we don't, again, the news cycle doesn't determine the pulpit content.
Yeah.
But from time to time, and I rarely, I don't think I ever do this. But some people that are wiser than me, they do. When there's big events, they do make sure to kind of include some kind of biblical commentary on it. But you're saying to have that be rare? For me, it's never.
Yeah.
So maybe I should do it sometimes.
Yeah, I think that rare would be fair. That we shouldn't. like you said, Jerusalem is in the news every day. Does that mean every Sunday I need to get up and talk about Jerusalem?
Good point. Yeah, good point.
No, I don't think we should. I think it's a distraction if we do. I think we're getting off on a hobby horse. There's a lot more to talk about in Scripture. And of course, this is, it's not a minor part of Scripture, but it's certainly not at the forefront of discipleship and what it means to follow Jesus.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes it can be a distraction. There are people who are sort of experts in eschatology, but they're much less of an expert in discipleship, sanctification, that formation. I think let's focus on where the Scriptures put the focus.
Yeah.
And not neglect those things, but not overemphasize them.
Is it Peter who says, like, the end of all things is at hand?
Yeah.
Like, therefore be fervent in your prayers?
Yeah.
So because of the soon coming return of Christ, we better be men and women of prayer.
Yeah. Yeah.